Welcome, rational thinkers and champions of evidence-based reasoning, to the Free of Faith podcast. This is the place where we dare to peel back the comforting but opaque layers of faith-based claims and expose their logical shortcomings. Today we're plunging into one of the most disturbing and rarely questioned concepts in Christian theology: eternal damnation. Is eternal damnation justice? Or is it divine overkill dressed up as holiness? Imagine you're standing in a courtroom. You are being sentenced for jaywalking. The judge bangs the gavel and declares,
"You are hereby sentenced to eternal torture."
no parole, no end, no reprieve. Just pure, endless suffering. Not because you murdered someone or burned down a village, but because you made a finite mistake. Sounds good in theory. But rehabilitation requires an end. It presumes the offender can learn, improve, and change. What sense does it make to lock someone into eternal punishment and then say it's for their growth? If someone's sentence has no end, they have no chance to demonstrate change. Imagine a schoolteacher who permanently expels a student for misspelling a word. No feedback, no extra help, just expulsion. Would you call that rehabilitation? Of course not. Eternal punishment can't serve a rehabilitative function if it rules out the very possibility of rehabilitation. Let's now look at retribution. The retributive model argues that people should get what they deserve. It's about proportion. The punishment matches the crime. If you steal a car, you do a few years. If you commit fraud, perhaps more. But even the most retribution-focused justice system stops short of infinite sentences for finite crimes. The harm we commit as humans is, by definition, limited. Endless punishment is logically incoherent. Let's revisit that courtroom. Imagine a legal system where every crime, from jaywalking to homicide, is punished with a life sentence. That's not justice. Yet the idea of eternal damnation does exactly that. It equates all finite wrongdoing with infinite punishment. That's not proportionate. That's not justice. That's punitive overdrive. Now, let's take on the odd notion of appeasing God's wrath. How emotionally unstable would a deity need to be to require infinite suffering to cool off? If someone's anger never cools, that person isn't emotionally well. And if that person is God, we have a serious theological problem. Imagine a judge who eternally keeps an offender in prison, not because they're a danger, but because the judge remains angry. That's not justice. It's petty vengeance, unworthy of respect. We've now tackled the three main defenses of eternal damnation and found each wanting. Let's walk through a few theological counters. First, there's the infinite offense argument. Since God is infinite, any offense against him is infinite and warrants infinite punishment. But justice doesn't scale like that. We don't punish people based on who they offend, but by the nature of the act. You don't get the death penalty for insulting a king. Justice isn't about the status of the offended party. It's about the severity and intent of the action itself. Then comes the old fallback.
God's justice is above human logic.
Convenient, right? When it doesn't make sense, it's just beyond our human minds. But if that's the case, then why use human words like just or merciful to describe God at all? You can't praise God's justice as if you understand divine justice, and then claim divine justice is incomprehensible. That's playing both sides. Another popular claim?
Eternal damnation respects free will.
The idea is that if people freely choose to reject God, he honors that choice forever. But let's be real. How free is that choice when it's made under fear, ignorance, or limited understanding of eternity? We don't treat our children like that. Would we consider it fair to let a child make a decision that determines their fate forever, with no chance of reconsideration? Of course not. Choice without adequate information is manipulation, not freedom. Lastly, We have the claim that eternal punishment is fitting, because the soul is eternal. But this confuses the duration of the soul with the duration of its guilt. A soul can be eternal without being eternally guilty. The idea that a finite act justifies infinite punishment simply because the soul sticks around makes no sense. Let's wrap up with a few vivid analogies to drive these points home. Imagine a child breaks a neighbor's window and gets life in prison. The offense is real, but the punishment is egregiously out of proportion. Or imagine a teacher who expels a student permanently for one mistake, refusing to ever let them learn or grow. What does that say about the teacher? Or a judge so consumed with rage that no sentence is ever enough? Is that a sign of strength or instability? So, what can we conclude? Eternal damnation doesn't rehabilitate. It doesn't mete out proportionate justice. And it doesn't reflect the behavior of a rational or emotionally stable being. If a deity insists on infinite suffering for finite acts, we're clearly not talking about justice. We're talking about injustice canonized as doctrine. If this conversation has sparked some questions, or even some discomfort, that's a good thing. Questioning is the first step toward clarity. Don't settle for easy answers or platitudes. Dive deeper, explore further, and demand evidence. Head over to Free of Faith to read the full article and join the discussion. Let's keep this conversation going, because the pursuit of truth doesn't stop at questioning. It's about finding answers that actually make sense. Thank you for tuning in to the Free of Faith podcast, where we expose the logical failings of faith and celebrate the clarity that comes with reason. Until next time, stay skeptical, stay curious, and remember, rationality always outperforms faith. Engage reality, and I'll see you soon.